Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to look at what the axis of symmetry is and how to find it. So first of all, what is the axis of symmetry? Well, if we have a graph like this one here, so we have a parabola here, the axis of symmetry is the point right in the middle where if you draw a dotted line straight through this, the graph is symmetrical on either side. So you can fold the graph right over, it will be exactly the same. So here the axis of symmetry should be about here, because the graph is exactly the same on each side, and that graph could fold from this side right on top to this side. So now let's look at how to find it. You could, of course, if you're given the graph in the first place, you could eyeball it and say, oh, it's about there. But this method is going to allow you to find the exact point, even if it's a really complex number like a fraction. So let's say we have the equation 3x squared plus 12x minus 5. The first thing you should remember is the standard form of a quadratic equation. So this is in the standard form, which is just ax squared plus bx plus c. And you need to know this form because you need to know what a, b, and c is from this equation in order to use the formula for the axis of symmetry. To find the axis of symmetry, we use a formula. That formula is negative b over 2a. So this formula consists of b and a, so we have to know the standard form of a quadratic so we can find out what our b and what our a is in this quadratic. So if we look up here, our 12 is our b, our 3 is our a. So now we have b and a, so we can substitute those values into this equation to find the axis of symmetry. So first up we have negative b, so we're going to put a negative, and now we have b, which is 12, and that's over 2a, so we have 2 and a is 3, and now we just solve this equation here. So we have a negative times 12, which gives us negative 12, and we have 2 times 3, which is 6. And negative 12 over 6 is negative 2. So our axis of symmetry is negative 2. But we don't write it as just negative 2. We write it as x is equal to negative 2. And the reason we write it like that is because when we do our graph here, this graph will look something like this. Our axis of symmetry is x equals minus 2, and this is the actual graph for our axis of symmetry. So x is equal to minus 2, so minus 1 is about here, and minus 2 is about here. So if we draw in a dotted line for x equals minus 2, it will give us something like this, which is our axis of symmetry because this graph is symmetrical on both sides, or at least it's close. If you draw it a bit better, it should probably be a bit more like that. So that's why we write x is equal to minus 2. Now if you want to check if you're right, you can use a online graphing calculator. So here I'm using Desmos, it's free to use, and all you want to do is type in your quadratic equation. So we have y equals 3x squared plus 12x minus 5, and we can zoom out a little and we see our graph here. So remember, your axis of symmetry should go right down the middle if you're correct, and it should be symmetrical on both sides. So we found our axis of symmetry to be x equals minus 2. So if we type in x equals minus 2, we can check, and yes, that is correct, it goes right down the middle. The only other thing you should know is if it asks you to graph your axis of symmetry onto your graph, don't do it as a solid line, you should do it as a dotted line, so like this. Anyway, that is what the axis of symmetry is and how to find it. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. See you next time.